start off with an intro and then we'll dive into the presentation.
Happy to. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jess Velez Novas, and I'm representing Essex County Community Foundation. It's really excited to, as a foundation, we're excited to partner with Resonant Energy and other organizations to offer grant opportunities and share resources. That's through our Climate Resilience Essex County strategy that's led by Kate Mache, who's not able to join us today. But this strategy is there to support residents, nonprofits, and communities to collaboratively build resilience and prepare for climate-related disasters and to innovate for long-term sustainability and prosperity. So we are here to really just join in and share those resources. I will go ahead and insert in the chat a link to that climate resilience page so you can learn more. Sign up if you want to get information through our email list, learn about future webinars like this one, or just ask any questions. So thank you, Sani and Rachel, for having us. And I will pass it to you. And I'm also going to be here learning about solar and exploring that as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jess. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I know it's been a pretty chaotic few days with the blizzard, so appreciate everyone showing up. My name is Sana. I'm here on behalf of Resonant Energy. We'll be talking today about this grant opportunity that Jess mentioned that we're partnering with ECCF on, called the Solar Upgrading Nonprofits Program. We'll have a little bit of a presentation and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Since we can't see you all, I'd love to just get a sense of who's joining. So feel free to just drop your name and organization in the chat. And if you have any questions throughout, feel free to also drop those in the chat. My colleague Rachel is here to help answer those. And then we'll, as I said, open up the floor for discussion at the end. So yeah, let's get started. So as I said, my name is Sana. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager at Resonant Energy. I manage our relationships and programs with various community and industry partners like ECCF, help expand access to solar. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, have a background in urban planning and community development and stakeholder engagement, specifically around renewable energy. And I'm very excited to be talking with you all a little bit more about what the benefits of solar are, how this grant program can support your nonprofit, especially because we're in a bit of a critical time around the incentives, which I'll dive a little bit more into later on. So this webinar is designed for anyone who is interested in participating or wants to learn more about the Solar Upgrading Nonprofits Program. Our goal with this program is really to set up nonprofit organizations for long-term financial success by helping them access meaningful energy savings through solar. Whether you've explored solar before and are looking for some additional funding or some more comprehensive exploration of your options, or it's your very first time exploring solar, you are in the right place. And just a quick agenda for this presentation. I will talk a little bit more about Resonant. Let's see, just trying to get to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit more about Resonant and the work that we do, and then I'll dive into the benefits of solar, give a little bit of an overview of why you might be considering solar at all, why you should be if you aren't already, and then talk through the state and federal incentives for nonprofits specifically, and then I'll dive into the details of this grant program that we are here to talk about today. And as I said, we'll open up the floor for Q&A. Thanks to everyone who's already introduced themselves in the chat. It's great to see some familiar names and organizations. So who is Resonant Energy? We were founded in 2016 with a mission to expand access to clean energy. Today, we do that primarily by helping nonprofit organizations and affordable housing developments go solar and take advantage of the available financing and funding opportunities that can otherwise feel difficult to pursue. We have an entire team dedicated to helping our clients apply for state and federal incentives, as well as grant opportunities, and consider that to be sort of one of our unique specialty services as a solar developer. Our office is based in Boston. Most of our projects are in Massachusetts. We've recently expanded into Connecticut and Rhode Island and have already done some projects in New York as well. We are B Corp certified and 100% employee owned. We are a full service solar developer, meaning we manage the entire construction process. So not just preliminary sort of financing and designs, but also the construction process will take care of all of that, permitting and installation, as well as post-installation monitoring. So you will really only have to interface with us throughout the project's life cycle. We can support solar integration into new construction projects and often work with architects and engineers, as well as on existing buildings. As I mentioned, we have a team dedicated to helping you successfully capture financing and funding opportunities. That's a big part of how we work. And partnership and accountability have been at the center of our outreach approach since our start. We really want to work with others towards a shared goal of expanding solar access and believe that community organizations like ECCF can speak best to their network's needs and current barriers. And as a result, most of our clients have come through programs that we run collaboratively, like the Solar Upgrading Nonprofits program. And then lastly, we have a strong network of impact financiers and mission-aligned lenders to help organizations without a lot of capital explore no-cost options and grant and loan opportunities for solar as well. These are some of the clients and partners we've developed strong relationships with over the last decade of our work. We are currently in the 6th year of a program specifically targeting affordable housing developers with LISC, Massachusetts, and in the 2nd year of a program with the city of Cambridge. We were competitively selected as the city's official solar vendor to help provide solar technical assistance to commercial property owners in Cambridge. And then through this work, we have to date installed nearly 400 solar projects for individual organizations. Here are some that you might recognize in Essex County specifically, including churches, food pantries, affordable housing. While we mostly do rooftop arrays, as you can see here, we're increasingly also doing parking canopies, especially as incentives for those have gotten stronger. And we've really kind of carved out a niche and specific expertise in building projects at this scale that you see here, unlike other developers that are focused on smaller residential projects or much larger utility scale projects that you might see along the highway or out in rural farmland. We've become experts at navigating the complexities of building at this scale. And then last year, through our work with our partners, we launched the first round of SUN and supported a lot more organizations than we could have imagined. And as a result, applied for a 2nd round of funding with Mass CEC and are very excited to be partnering with ECCF this round to bring this program to more nonprofits. And the goal of this program is really to make solar exploration more accessible to busy organizations by providing no-cost technical assistance, stipends to cover staff time invested in that process, and then grant writing support for organizations that do move forward with solar and might need funds to help cover the cost of installation. We recognize that nonprofits have a lot of competing priorities, and so this is really intended to help simplify the process. In round 1, we significantly surpassed our goal of providing 750 kilowatts of solar analysis. We ended up providing almost 4,000 kilowatts of solar analysis for various nonprofit organizations at no cost through this program. And the 7 organizations from phase 1 who are officially moving forward with solar will collectively save nearly $17 million in operating expenses over the next 25 years by installing solar. This was a huge success, and so we're excited to bring back another round at a critical moment where energy costs are increasing and some of the solar incentives are changing. So before we dive into more details on how to apply and participate in this program, you may be asking yourself, why go solar, especially when there are so many other projects you could be spending your time on. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the reasons that our clients and partners are continuing to go solar. The primary driver of solar, as you might imagine, is rising electricity prices. The cost of electricity is consistently on the rise, and you can see this is particularly the case in Massachusetts. In this graph here from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, you can see there's not only a clear upward trend in average electricity prices, but that Massachusetts here in brown, Massachusetts prices are significantly higher than the national average, which is here in blue. And this is in large part because the state of Massachusetts continues to rely on oil and gas, which are imported fuels and therefore subject to things like inflation and unpredictable price spikes that are spurred by tariffs and other global events. And under the new federal administration, the governor of Massachusetts predicts that the cost of electricity will rise even more quickly than it has in recent years. But in conjunction with very high electricity prices, Massachusetts actually has some of the best solar incentives in the country, which likely explains why solar deployment is relatively high. We're 11th in the nation for solar deployment. And not to mention, solar is one of the most reliable ways to protect against the increasing costs and price spikes that I highlighted in the last slide. And the leading incentive program in Massachusetts, it's called SMART. It offers monthly cash payments to anyone who owns a solar system. And this program, this incentive program, paired with some really strong state grant opportunities, means that solar makes a lot of financial sense in Massachusetts, especially for nonprofits who are increasingly feeling the strain of overhead costs. I'll get into the details of both what the SMART program looks like today and what the specific grant opportunities are a bit later, in addition to sun, of course. So here's what we tend to see when nonprofit organizations go solar. Installing solar means that they are no longer reliant on oil, on gas, on other imported fuels, and instead are what we call energy self-sufficient, which means they're producing clean energy on site that's insulated from inflation, from tariffs, and price spikes that are spurred by global events. And this increased resiliency tends to save organizations 40 to 100% of their electricity bills. And as a result, they can be more financially focused on their missions. So here's just an example of what that looks like on your bill. This is a client who in November of 2021 had an electricity bill of nearly $1,400. And then in December of 2024, after installing solar, they managed to cover all their electricity needs with the project that they installed, and so did not have to pay anything. That's sort of a very tangible way to see the impact here. So now that you have a bit of an idea of what that impact is, I'll talk a little bit more about the incentives that are available to you right now at both state and federal level, in addition to the SUN program, and we'll talk about how we're helping our clients and customers navigate changes in these incentives. So many of you have probably heard of the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. It was passed in 2022 and significantly improved the economics of solar, especially for nonprofits. It was the largest climate bill ever passed by Congress, and still today offers some of the strongest incentives for solar. At a very high level, the IRA increased the base federal tax credit for solar to 30%. You can see that here in yellow. Previously, it was 22%, and initially locked it in for 10 years. And then on top of that, projects can qualify for additional adders, 10 or 20% adders here in pink and purple, depending on things like location, community impact, or where the equipment is sourced from. We tend to see an average of, or help our clients capture an average of 40 to 50% of a 40 to 50% tax credit. And most importantly, for nonprofits, the IRA introduced what's called direct pay, sometimes also referred to as elective pay, which allows tax-exempt organizations to receive the tax credit as a cash reimbursement from the IRS, typically in the first year of the system's operation. So that was sort of the big game changer for nonprofits. Unfortunately, Trump's recent federal tax bill, H.R. 1, has undone much of the IRA, as some of you may already know. And that includes setting the tax credits to phase out in December of 2027, which is many years earlier than initially planned. But the good news is that there's still time to act. We're helping most of our clients safe harbor the tax credit by July of this year, so that they actually have until 2030 to build their project instead of having to complete it by 2027, by the end of 2027. So if you apply for SUN now, there will still be plenty of time for us to help you pursue the safe harbor route. And the other good news is that the tax credit phase out has coincided with the launch of a new iteration of the SMART program that I mentioned earlier. It's called SMART 3. The original SMART incentives were based on a declining block structure and had been pretty much used up by 2025. But this new program offers significantly higher incentives across all projects and is available for projects starting this year. So this means if you don't capture the tax credit, your project will still benefit from better state incentives. So overall, incentives are still strong, but timing matters a little bit more than it did before, especially if you're looking to get that tax credit. So while the tax credit is still in place, there's a bit of a rare overlap of incentives right now that we're referring to as the incentive sweet spot. Organizations like yours, nonprofits, are eligible for all of these, which makes solar particularly attractive. And the components of this sweet spot include SUN, which we launched at the beginning of the year and will be available through July or until funding runs out. That's, as I'll talk a little bit more about, is a pre-installation grant to help you understand your options. It's the best place to start. We will help you capture the rest of the incentives from there, but it gives you sort of a few $1,000s to help you get that process started. And then another big opportunity that's available right now is an installation grant to actually help cover up to 100% of installation costs for the solar system, for a solar system. That's funded by the Department of Energy Resources. It's a $6 million pot, and the third round opens March 2nd. There will also be a fourth following that, and we're proud to share that 2 of the 3 awardees from the first round of applications are our clients, and we expect to see more success as they start announcing the results of the second round, which closed recently. So that's also available right now. And then the federal tax credit, as I said, is available through July 4th. That's sort of the pathway that we're recommending so that you have the longest runway for actually getting your system installed. And then SMART 3, the current sort of tier of incentives, is locked in for the rest of the year. On the next slide, I just have a little bit of a visual of this timeline. You can see that the sweet spot began in January with the launch of SMART 3 and the second round of SUN, and will end in July when the safe harbor deadline hits. Keep in mind that you don't actually need to start the project to lock in these incentives. You don't need to start construction. So while this may seem like not a lot of time, especially if you're, just starting to think about solar, we will definitely be able to help you get there if you apply for sun in the coming weeks. And then here's just a pretty good example of an organization that took advantage of all these incentives that I talked about on the last slide, and we're actually able to get, as a result, 100% of installation costs covered. So essentially a free solar system. Grow Associates applied for sun in the first round. Last year, they received $2.5K to cover the preliminary design and feasibility study, that pre-installation work that they did with us. And then they decided to move forward. We helped them apply for the LISP grant. They received the maximum amount, $500K, for that, for the installation of the project. And then we're able to recoup, or will be able to recoup, the remaining about $300K through the tax credit that we will be safe harboring for them. And then in addition to that, they'll save, or they'll receive as an additional revenue stream, nearly $700K in cash payments over 20 years through the new SMART program. So the economics for this project are incredible. They will save nearly $3 million over the solar system's lifetime, and are working with the grantor to set up milestone payments so that they're minimizing out-of-pocket costs, and we expect them to break even no later than in year one. But I know that, that is a very specific sort of case that relies on receiving all of those incentives that I talked about. And if that sort of isn't feeling possible for your organization right now, we wanted to show an example of what the economics for solar look like in a post-tax credit world as compared to the current tax credit world that we're in. And you'll see that the economics actually still look very good. This is a nonprofit client with a decently large roof. They're looking to install a 300 kilowatt system totaling about $930,000. If they safe harbor the tax credit and receive that 30% reimbursement, they will, which totals about $300K for them, they will be able to pay off the system in 7 years at a 12.3% IRR, and over the course of the system's lifetime, save over $1.6 million. If they were not to meet that deadline, they would have a slightly higher payback period and slightly lower IRR because they're not capturing that about $300K reimbursement. But you can see in both cases, they're still receiving almost $700,000 in SMART payments over the system's lifetime. So in the end, the sort of lifetime savings still are very compelling, totaling about $1.3 million in a post-ITC world. So I'd still encourage organizations to move forward with sun even if they don't think they're in a place to capture this tax credit in the next sort of 4 or 5 months that we have. So now that you're all up to date on the solar policy landscape right now, there is no need for you to retain any of that. I know that was a lot of information. Our expertise and sort of part of our services is really to take care of that for you. And once you apply for sun, that will be our job. So let's dive into the details of how to apply for sun. Here's how much you can expect to receive as a sun participant. The stipends vary depending on your building portfolio size, so how many buildings we're looking at, and will be awarded to you after we review the feasibility analysis with you and your team. Usually we set up about an hour-long meeting to review the results of that. Will include a preliminary design and model the cash flow across 25 years, including all the incentives that I just talked about. And the best way to get started is just to fill out an application. I'll drop the link in the chat and pull it up on the next slide. It's a very short Google form that we use to get connected with you and take an initial look at your site. We'll respond to your application typically within a week. And if you're accepted, we'll set up an intro call with you to kick off the process. After you complete the SUN program, after we've done the feasibility assessment, you have a good overview of your options. We, of course, hope that you'll proceed with solar. And at that point, we can help you apply for additional funding, like the LISP grant that I talked about, help cover the cost of your system. So that's it for today from me. Here's the application or a link to our webpage. You can find all the information there, including the application link and just more information about the programs, future webinars. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining, and I'd love to take the next section of the hour to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself if you're able to. Someone is asking, we're a nonprofit that will then talk with nonprofits in Beverly. Do you have a template letter that we could send everyone? Yes, if you want to, I think if I'm understanding correctly, you want to share information about the program with other nonprofits. I can certainly send you a sort of like, we have a flyer that we can share. I can also send you a little blurb that you can forward to other organizations that you might think are interested. If you want to drop your email or either directly to me if you're able to, or in the chat, I can follow up with that information.
We'll also be sending out a recording of this webinar and the slide deck as well that you can share with folks.
See a question from Alan. If we want to do a power purchase agreement rather than a direct purchase, does it matter if we don't meet the deadline? That's a great question. So I didn't dive into the specifics of power purchase agreement versus a direct purchase, but that's something we can explore with you once you apply for SUN. Basically, the power purchase agreement is a no-cost option that allows organizations to basically host solar on their roof. It's owned by a third party, and then they buy electricity off of the third party at a discounted rate. So they don't have to pay for the upfront costs of the system, aren't responsible for any ongoing operations and maintenance, but are receiving electricity at a discounted rate, so are saving significantly over time. The deadline for safe harboring the tax credit does matter in this case as well, because the third party financer will want to capture that tax credit. So yeah, we will work with our financers to get them what they need for the project in order to do that, if you decide to go the power purchase route. Thanks for the question. Yeah, Shelley had what I think is a follow-up question to that. Are nonprofits owning the solar or leasing? And the answer is that both. It sort of depends on what the organization's cash reserves are, if they have the ability to cover the upfront cost. I'd say right now, with opportunities like the LISP grants, most organizations are opting to own it themselves because they can get money to cover the upfront cost. So ownership, with the tax credit still in place, looks very attractive and then typically yields higher savings. But we also have plenty of leasing arrangements that we can explore with you if those costs still feel too high, or we aren't able to get a grant, for example. We've had scenarios where we pivot from ownership to no cost or the other way around, depending on whether a grant has been secured. So we have a lot of flexibility there. What is the expected life expectancy of the solar system, and is there a long-term warranty offered? So the equipment is warranted for 25 years. So that's sort of the expected life expectancy that we model in our cash flows. But production usually doesn't decrease very significantly after those 25 years. Another question, can cost of roof replacements be rolled into construction costs? So we can certainly model a cash flow that includes the cost of a roof replacement so that you can sort of look at the roof replacement and solar as one project. The roof replacement isn't considered part of the tax eligible basis for the tax credit. So you wouldn't be able to get a reimbursement, to percentage reimbursement on that, but we can certainly model it so that you can look at the economics of it as one project. And many organizations find that sort of financial benefits of solar help offset the investment in the roof replacement. Thanks for all the questions. We have a question about what work needs to be done for the safe harbor. So safe harbor requires a 10% down payment on the project and a contract signed. That 10% down payment is sort of proof that the project has started, but doesn't necessarily require any on-site work. Usually that's just engineering work that we do sort of behind the scenes to design the project. And those two things are the things that you'll need by July 4th of this year in order to safe harbor the tax credit and buy yourself an additional few years to build the project. Another question from Alan, does Resonant help organizations with LISP and other programs, or would we have to find them on our own? That's a great question. We have a grants team, so we are staying up to date on the various grant opportunities for solar, including LISP, and through the SUN program are able to actually offer grant writing support at no cost. And then I have a question about community solar. If we install a system larger than our needs, how does that work? Is there a community solar option? That's a great question. That there is certainly a community solar option. Actually, this picture that we're looking at right now is a parking canopy at the Discovery Museum. That's a community solar array. They are using it to offset their own electricity bills, and then also sending excess production to a number of other nonprofits and some local low-income residents. So if you happen to have more space than you need on your roof or in your parking lot for solar, then we can explore a community solar option and find that can be a useful way to generate some additional revenue to help pay off the cost of the system. Thanks for that question. And there are, through the SMART program and through some of the federal tax credits, some additional incentives for projects like these as well. These are great questions. I'll give it a few more minutes in case anything else comes up, but otherwise, feel free to send an email directly to me. I'll drop my email in the chat. Or fill out an application for the SUN program and we'll get in touch with you. You can answer any further questions. Thanks so much to everyone for joining. Thanks, Ellen. Okay, I think we'll end it there. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Jess.